Nobody else is coming in. But Nellie sits over
I have
there,
more
so
questions than people.
huh? I
I
know.
have more questions than
I
people.
know. We're missing the middle section of the group right now, unfortunately. Um, but we'll go ahead and get started. This is like the correct starting time, so people will maybe a couple more will trickle in. Everybody, this is Valerie Lee from Chevron. I sent them a bit of background about you, but
Okay.
pretty much nothing at all because I didn't have the correct LinkedIn address. So I just told them that you used to be a petroleum engineer at Chevron.
Okay.
Other than that, they have no real background. Come on in, Gabrielle. They don't really have a lot of background on you. So I will let you take the stage, tell them a little bit about yourself, and then you can go into the questions.
Okay, sounds good. What I did is I kind of put together something that I was trying to answer all your questions, but it won't be just like, here's the question, here's the answer. So let me know if I don't answer some questions, all right? Thanks for sending in questions ahead of time. As Jeremy said, I'm Valerie Lee. Actually, I just met Jeremy, last month at
Pretty much.
Stanford alumni barbecue. And so he doesn't know a whole lot about me, so I'll share a little bit about myself, all right? Well, first of all, I'll have to start by saying I'm probably a lot older than you guys think because I actually worked for Chevron or in the oil business for 33 years. So I started right out of college. And so I just recently retired. But what I was going to do is kind of talk about, what jobs I had throughout my career. And I think it'll be pretty helpful. But I'm going to have to think back a long time, ago when I was your age. So forgive me if I, don't remember every detail, okay? So one of the things I wanted to share with you is I actually graduated from Cal State Bakersfield. I got my MBA at night, and it was after about working in the industry for 10 years. So I actually share, your CSUB alumni title, or you're not alumni yet, but I know about CSUB. So I have a Roadrunner t-shirt actually. So there you go. Anyway, so what might be surprising, Jeremy didn't even know this, I don't think, is I grew up in Bakersfield. Imagine that. I went to Highland High School. Does anyone go to Highland? Oh, no. Does anyone know where it is? Okay. So I went to Highland High School. My parents actually are in the restaurant business. Has anyone heard of Gillies? Bamboo Chopsticks downtown. So that's our family restaurant, and so my dad and my brothers live in town, and so I grew up here. I always wanted to go to Stanford because most of my relatives went to Cal, and that's kind of their rival, and I always gave them a hard time and said I was going to go to Stanford, and they didn't think I'd get in, or they didn't think I'd go, but I went. And what happened is I ended up getting a summer job for Occidental Petroleum here in Bakersfield because I knew some of my friends had parents who worked there, and I got a summer job, and I worked in accounting. And what I did is I wrote checks out to royalty owners for like 6 cents and 7 cents, because back in those days we had to write checks and say, why haven't you cashed this check yet, And so it got kind of boring, and my manager that I had for the summer job, she said, why don't you spend time with my husband, who's a petroleum engineer? And so I worked with him, and he said, you need to be an engineer, you don't want to be an accountant. So I ended up saying, okay, I'll be an engineer then. So I kind of decided to be a petroleum engineer because at the time, it was kind of a time when they were hiring a lot of petroleum engineers to be in the petroleum business. And does anyone know what a petroleum engineer does? No? Do you want to know?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so a petroleum engineer, what a petroleum engineer does is, you guys ever see pumping units going up and down? You know what they're doing? They're, they have like pipe that goes like around here. It's about 1,000 feet in the ground. Okay.
So 1,000 feet down.
1,000 feet down is where all the oil is. Okay. And so every time it goes down, it's getting some oil, like a straw, like those birds with the straws. They go down, get the oil, and then a pump closes a valve, and then it lifts the oil into the pipelines, okay? So like, you guys ever look at Panorama out here? You go out to the bluffs, Look down, see all those pumping units? They're all just sucking oil out of the ground. And Kern River makes like 80,000 barrels of oil a day. So, do you know how many gallons are in a barrel? Does anybody?
I have no idea.
You have no idea? Take a guess. How many gallons? Like 1 gallon, everyone knows what a gallon is. So, how many gallons in a barrel?
100.
42. See, there you go.
Cool.
That's the right answer. Okay, so 42 gallons in a barrel, and they make 80,000 barrels of oil every day out of that oil field. So can you imagine? That's a lot, huh?
How many a day?
80,000 out of that one oil field
Barrels?
a day. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay,
Just
so
the one that's like
Kern River.
The Kern River
Yeah.
one? Wow.
Or 70,000 maybe now. Okay, but so anyway, it's pumping that much oil, and what happens is when you pump that much out of the ground, it's just like pumping a lake dry, right? The pressure kind of goes down, right? Like at first when you find it, all the oil comes in easily, but then after a while it loses pressure. And so that's where kind of the petroleum engineers have to kind of figure out how to get all the oil out of the ground. And a lot of times it's hard to get it around here because it's really thick like honey. And so you have to heat it up, and you have to figure out how to heat it up and get it out of the ground. Okay, so that's kind of what a petroleum engineer does. But the reason why Chevron has so many people working is you need to get it out of the ground. You also, so what if you pump that much fluid on, up, and you just put it in a swimming pool or whatever, right? We don't do that. We can't have oil. You can't see oil anywhere, so they have to run it through pipelines. We can't spill any oil anywhere. We can't, just run it out on the ground or anything, right? So we have to send it to refineries. So we spend a lot of money making sure that oil's not on the ground, or we also want to make sure that it's safe, right? We don't want oil flying up into people's face or anything like that. And it's real hot too, okay? So what's special around here is we have to inject steam into the ground, and we have to heat up water, steam, pump it into the ground to get the oil out. So anyway, did you learn something today about oil business? Oil
Totally.
business is really big in Bakersfield, and it's because we have lots of oil underneath the ground here, and which it's kind of unusual too, because 1,000 feet's kind of shallow. When we get offshore, they can go 2-3 miles deep.
Really?
So that's why, why it costs a lot. So I know some of you guys were talking about, ask questions about oil price. When the oil price is high, we can go and explore offshore and explore expensive places, right? But when the oil price is low, it kind of doesn't make sense for us to go after things that are really deep and expensive. So that's why you hear about layoffs and you hear about people losing their jobs, is because the projects don't make sense to go off and try to get expensive oil. So like a well that's 1,000 feet deep might cost you $300,000, $400,000 to drill, but a well offshore might cost $50 million to drill. See? So anyway, that's kind of a little bit about business of oil. Do you have any questions about the business part of it? Do you guys understand that? Yeah.
So
White Sox fan. I watched them win the World Series in Houston.
I was like that.
Okay. Yeah, well, they're not my favorite.
To drill offshore, how much money could they get back out of that?
Well, what's tricky about drilling offshore is a lot of times we don't really know if you're going to get oil. If you go to what they call wildcat exploration, you have like a 1 out of 8 chance of hitting oil. But if you hit it really big. So like for example, I was talking to you about all of Kern River making 80,000 barrels a day. You might make 100,000 barrels a day out of one well offshore, right? It could be that big. I mean, or you could find that much oil offshore, you see? And when they're untapped, meaning it's fully pressured, you can just, it's really light and easy to produce. So obviously you'll make a lot more money than what it costs to drill. But it also is very expensive to put a platform offshore. And plus make sure it's safe and pay people to be out there full time. So But it's actually very unique to have to put steam in the ground to get oil out around here. So
Is that because it's so thick?
it's because it's so thick. It's called heavy oil.
Uh-huh.
You ever hear the term heavy oil? Heavy oil there's oil. Okay, anybody ever make salad dressing with water and oil? Is the oil on top or on the bottom? Right? Because oil is lighter than water, okay? But around here, the oil is actually almost heavier than the water. Like, water's like 10 gravity, and the oil, some cases, might be heavier than water where it actually would sink. So that's how heavy it is.
Wow.
So it's bad news. So, because also oil, I don't know, maybe I didn't say this at the beginning, oil is in sand, in sandstone. And so it's actually just in the pore spaces. So you got to get it to flow through sand to come to the wells. So you got to keep sand out, that kind of thing.
And does the steam help keep the sand out of the way, basically, or what?
No, you have to put like liners in the wells to keep the sand out of the well bores. But the heat actually breaks it loose from the sand, so it's not sticking to the sand, right?
Got it.
And they have really high recovery rates here, but high recovery rates are like 60, 70% of the oil.
Mm-hmm.
Like 100% of the oil is in there. Think of it as a bucket of sand with oil in it, and you're trying to get as much oil as you can out. There's still going to always be oil remaining, okay? Anyway, I got off track there, but that's what petroleum engineering is. And so, to me, I'll just probably say it is why I chose petroleum is there was a demand for petroleum engineers at the time, and I got a job right out of college that paid quite a bit. So I guess when you're looking for good paying jobs, engineering is a really good paying job. You get good benefits. You get to travel. I'll talk a little bit about my traveling and the jobs I had, okay? So petroleum engineer is what I graduated with, but I didn't always just do petroleum engineering, okay? Okay, so I'm going to move on to, let's see, it's 1 o'clock. Okay, this won't be too long. I'll open it up for questions too after, in case I missed anything. But I think I got most of the ones. Okay, so what happened is when I was at Stanford, we only had like 12 people that majored in petroleum engineering. So that's not very many, is it? So because of that, we had all the companies would come and try to get us to work for them. And what happened is I ended up working for, has anyone heard of Unocal?
Yes.
You know, the gas stations? You see Unocal stations or Union Oil, California. I ended up working for Unocal. Okay, and the reason I worked for Unocal, or the reason I chose Unocal was because it was in California, and I really like California, I'd say. And I started over in Santa Maria. Do you guys know where Santa Maria is? Okay, and so I worked as a petroleum engineer there, and we set a brand new platform offshore. It's called Point Pedernales platform. So that was kind of fun. We went on a helicopter to go out to the platform. And then what I did is I actually came to Bakersfield. I transferred from Santa Maria to Bakersfield after about 5 years, and I got my MBA at night. Okay, and so because I have my engineering degree and my MBA, I kind of went towards more of the business side of Chevron, not so much the petroleum engineering side. Okay, but it really helped me to have a background in business and in engineering, I thought. One of the jobs I got was more like a planning engineer. Does anyone know what a planning person does? Or have you guys ever heard of planning? Okay, planning is real business oriented. It's actually a big part of big companies is trying to decide where to spend money or what to do going forward. So for example, Chevron in Bakersfield spends about, okay, how much money do you think they spend?
On what?
Just capital spending on developing wells, drilling wells.
Worldwide or just here in?
Just Bakersfield, our Bakersfield office right here.
Somebody else besides me guess.
San Joaquin Valley Business Unit. Hey, that's pretty close. It's probably more like $1 billion. Yeah, between $1 billion, $1 billion a year, okay? So that's $1 billion. Okay, so that's 10 times 100 million. right? That's a lot of money, right? And so it takes a lot of people to decide what to spend that money on. Should we drill wells here? Should we drill wells here? Should we build facilities here? Should we buy something new? So that's what planning's about. Planning's a little bit let's have meetings and decide where to spend this money. And you have engineers saying, hey, spend it here. I want to spend the money, right? Or I want to spend the money. So the engineers need to know what they're doing, but to get funded, okay? Or if they like you, say, oh, Valerie has a good project. She did a good project last year, so here's some money for her. So that's kind of what engineering is about a lot, is trying to get people to fund your projects, okay? Then after I got my MBA here in Bakersfield, I actually worked out in LA Basin. I worked in Santa Fe Springs. I don't know if anyone knows where that is. 5 and 405 down in LA. And we worked the offshore asset group, the platforms offshore down there. So I spent a lot of time on the platforms and at Seal Beach, because we had a platform right off of Seal Beach. Anyone been to Seal Beach? You have? Did you notice the platform?
I saw something floating up there, obviously.
Yeah, it's only like 1 mile away from Seal Beach, and you can actually hear the phone ring on the platform from Seal Beach if you're there. So that was our platform.
You can hear the phone ring?
Yeah.
Like if you're standing on the
On the
coast
beach.
in Seal Beach.
Yeah, you can hear the.
You can
phone
hear
ring.
the phone ring on the rig?
Yeah.
Wow.
On the platform.
Cool.
Anyway, okay, but then what happened when I was down there is we decided to sell California assets, and so one of the things I did is had to make presentations to sell the assets, to say, hey, these are really good assets, they're worth a lot of money, and you should buy them. Anyway, that's what I did down there, and when they sold us all, I had an opportunity to go down to Houston, Texas. Anyone been to Houston? Hot?
Yes.
Hot?
And then
Oh, did you like it?
in here that's good.
I do. It's really big. It's so hot though.
It's so hot. I know. That's humid, actually.
That's why I'm saying like it's sticky.
Yeah.
It's different from here.
Yeah, it's really big. I mean, I liked it. I actually lived there 10 years, but what was kind of cool about it is I worked in what we called international new ventures. And so I got to, my boss, when I was working in Houston, was actually in Singapore, which is like about 12 hours different. So while he was sleeping, I was working, and then when I was sleeping, he was working. So we kind of just touched base in the morning and the afternoons to kind of work around the clock. And I also spent a lot of time over in Singapore. And when we did international new ventures, our business unit was Indonesia and Thailand and Vietnam and Myanmar. So I actually spent some time in all those places. It was pretty fun. I'd have to say I liked that job. And then maybe what I wanted to get at is if you join a company like an oil company or a bigger company, you can really change jobs every 2-3 years, or you can move around. So if that's something you like to do, that's probably the best benefit of working for an oil company, I would say, especially a big oil company. But all these jobs were still when I was with Unocal, which is also a pretty big company. But Chevron's about 10 times as big as Unocal.
So were you with Unocal after Occidental Petroleum? Or before?
Occidental was just the summer.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So Unocal was the job after graduation.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Any questions? That's fine, Jeremy, because I think I'm probably missing out on things.
No, go ahead. I'm highlighting some stuff I wanted to get to,
Okay.
but go ahead and keep going with what you're doing, and then
Yeah.
we'll get to things eventually. Go ahead. Keep
Okay.
going.
Well, so I was evaluating a lot of international projects. We had like building fertilizer plants in Myanmar because they didn't have any fertilizer and they wanted to use the money they're making from oil. Something you guys might not know about international is that really international, like let's say Thailand, they have a lot of gas there underground, but they don't have people there that can get the gas out of the ground and sell it. So companies fight for the contracts to work over there. Unocal was like the #1 company that won their respect, and so Thailand still gets the majority of the money that is made there, and really the oil companies are just contractors. They're actually helping them do the work, or training people over there so that they can do it themselves someday. So that's kind of how, when you work international, it's really just to share knowledge. Let's see. So next, I ended up working. My boss got pretty high up in the company, and I ended up working in corporate planning. But so that's probably the best job I had, because corporate planning was really providing analyst presentations and doing a lot of evaluations for mergers, acquisitions, that kind of thing.
Valerie, can I
Which I
interrupt
really
for a second? Because I think,
Yes. Okay.
like, if you could explain for us, I mean, you talked about different jobs you had over the
Right.
course of your time at Unical
Okay.
and then eventually Chevron. I don't think it's obvious to a lot of people in this room,
Mhm.
like how your career progresses and your boss moves up such that you
Oh,
come
okay.
to it. Can you explain a little bit, like, over
Okay.
the course of time, how your boss came to be in this position
Yeah.
such that you're doing strategic planning?
Oh, okay. So, so the way it works usually is you get assigned. You always have a supervisor, right? Your supervisor says, "Hey, it has a team or whatever, and here's what we're trying to do this year," right? And so you get focused on what your team's trying to do, but a lot of times your team finishes a project or something, and then they want to assign your team or you to new projects or move you to new jobs. With Chevron, the way they do it is you can post for jobs. They have an online site where you look at jobs you want and say, "Hey, I want that job." So
Within the company.
right. So once
internally,
you get
there's
inside
like an
a company,
internal job market for projects.
right. So people are always fighting over these jobs. Chevron, it was more competitive too. Once internal, because they had so many more employees, but they also had a lot more opportunities. For me, like Jeremy said, I had a really good boss, which I would encourage anybody when you get working for a company is to get a mentor or get somebody who really likes you, really thinks you're good. Well, hopefully they think you're good. Even if they're not good, you can convince them that you're good. And when they move up or if they do well, they'll always want people who are real, loyal to them. One of the guys that really helped me was a guy named Dave, and I worked closely with him, and he really thought, "Hey, you're really great. I think you're the best." And he moved up, and about 10 years later, he picked me for a really important job that I got to work for him, and he was like president of Indonesia at the time. So I got
Of
a
the
really
country.
good job. The country manager
I was
for
gonna say,
Indonesia.
he wasn't actually the president of Indonesia.
Well, for our company.
For the company, okay.
Yeah. We give good titles to people. That's what they did. And so, anyway, when I went to work with him, his name was Dave, remember? Well, he said, "You can call me David now," So I had to always go, "David," like, "Oh, okay, now you're important. You changed your name, But you gotta build relationships in any company. I think that's really helpful. I also think it's helpful when you're getting a job is, if you know somebody that works in a company that you like, just get to know them a little better. See if maybe you can make connections with people or someone knows somebody that you know, because it really helps a lot. So anyway, what happened is after that, when I worked in corporate planning especially, I worked in Houston, right? And my boss was actually in charge of the transition between Unical and Chevron. And so I pretty much had a choice of any job I wanted at Chevron a little bit. And so what I did is I ended up, since it was kind of towards the end of my career, it was probably about 10 years ago, I decided to move back to California because I was kind of done in Houston. I had a lot of friends and I really liked it there, but I kind of wanted to get back to California. And so when I came out to California, I've been working in the office here on Camino Media. My first job there was planning manager job, asset development, capital allocation. So, and then I eventually moved towards a business development job, which I was in when I retired, which is really mergers, acquisitions, and selling properties with other companies, external companies. It was kind of fun, but it's a lot more business oriented than petroleum engineering, though it helped me to also have petroleum engineering background. So, and some of you guys asked about Chevron culture. maybe I'll just contrast Unical and Chevron. Like I said, Unical was like a tenth of the size of Chevron, and so when you work for a real big company, some people like working for big companies because, I mean, what do you guys think? What's good about a big company versus a small company, I guess? What would you think is better?
Resources.
Yeah. Yeah, so resources, you have a lot more opportunities, like Chevron, a lot more countries all over the place, right? There's also, I mean, probably a little bit more financially stable. You know, you know you're gonna, you can pretty much keep your job. I mean, I wouldn't say that now so much, but you just show up every day, you know, work hard. You know, we haven't had to lay off too many people in the last 10 years. Okay, can anyone think of a negative though about big companies versus small companies?
So like bureaucracy.
There you go. That's exactly it. Okay, so bureaucracy. You can imagine, like you have 70,000 employees. You have rules for everybody. I mean, for example, you know, we're not supposed to be listening to Pandora on the radio, you know, on the computers because, and they track you, right? So it'd be kind of like things like, hey, you can't send emails to your friends, or you shouldn't be looking at your phone, right, during meetings. There's a lot of rules that people follow, okay? So let me see, what else? So there's also a lot more approvals needed to do something, right? So like if I came up with a good idea, I'd probably have to convince you and you and you and you know, and everyone will have to be, yeah, thumbs up, or tell you know, what's wrong with your project, right? Whereas in a small company, you might be able to do more on your own. Okay, so another thing is they're really, Chevron's really good about safety and compliance and environmental things are really important. We had stretch breaks, not really mandatory, but you had to like, okay, stop work, or want to do stretches, because they didn't want you getting, you know, like sitting down too long because they thought that was bad. We had on our computers, if you work too much on your computer, we had these work pace breaks that would actually lock your computer up, and you have to go take a break. You have to
Seriously?
Go, yeah. And so
In the middle of something, your computer just
Yeah.
locks up, like, too bad.
yeah, and
You
your
will take a break
supervisor,
now?
yeah, you have to.
Wow.
Well, it'll give you a warning. You could postpone it for 5 or 10 minutes, but then you'd have to take it. So, and then they'd lock you out if you spent too many hours during the week, if you took too many hours. So they're real strict on that because they're trying to save you from getting carpal tunnel and stuff. You wouldn't like it.
No, I
we all
wouldn't at all.
hated it.
I would
can
not at
tell.
all.
Let's see. Something special about Chevron, someone asked. Well, first of all, Chevron, when you think about the gas stations, you guys realize that Chevron and Texaco are the same company? Okay.
Really?
Okay, but Chevron stations kind of cater more towards females. And so what kind of things do you think the Chevron gas stations have besides being higher priced gas than other stations? I'll give you a couple examples if you guys can't think of when you think of a Chevron station. I mean, because they pride themselves on doing this a little bit. Or you see difference in Chevron and Texaco gas stations? Anybody?
I feel like Chevron's a cleaner generally.
See, there you go. Okay, so Chevrons are catering towards females, and what they're trying to do, like number one, is clean restrooms and lots of lights. Okay, and those cute cars. They're all marketing geared towards females, and Texaco's more like oil, more male, the male marketing. So, like they used to own a NASCAR, for example, where you might see Texaco promoting sporting events. So, see, so that's good, huh? If you want clean restrooms, or you want, they're trying to have markets. Yes?
Say it again?
Is it the same? Chevron and Texaco gas?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly the same. They have some fuel additives that are really good for California that make it a little more expensive, but at least the employees are kind of sold on it. But, We do have a big patent for it, so it must be that people are always trying to fight. Okay, and just maybe to wrap this up, let's see. You know, we have an intern program that might be kind of interesting to you guys. When we hire new people, people get jobs for the summer. They're assigned a certain person. Like if I had an intern for the summer, I have to come up with a project that they have to be able to do in 10 weeks. And at the end of the summer, they make all the summer interns give presentations, half-an-hour presentations to everybody, and they rank them, that kind of thing. So it's pretty competitive to get jobs, but I think our summer interns are treated pretty well. We recruit from like all over the country. I think we had a few people from CSUB last year, actually, in our intern program, but I'm not sure how that worked. But I don't know, people seem to like it. The interns all come in. I know the parking spaces get full, and there's a lot more talking at work, but other than that, it's kind of fun to have a lot of interns around. Last year, I think they had like, I don't know, 60 or 70, quite a few. So, some people asked a little bit about what it was like to be female. Right now, there's a lot of females in Chevron that have engineering jobs, but my advice would really be is you, as a female, one thing you got to distinguish yourself between like the support staff, which is a lot of people that, you know, guys will ask them to go get coffee for them or clean the conference room up or make copies or something. So you don't want to be that. You want to be like, no, I don't do that, right? I'm an engineer, you know, and you don't want to just be supporting others. But now it's not so bad. I mean, 30 years ago, I think, when I started, I always tell the story is they had kitchen duty and they had people's names that were supposed to clean the kitchen. And there's only one other female engineer where I worked, and she was on it. And so they made a big deal about, hey, Val, we're not putting Val on this. And so it was kind of a big issue in the office, was that Val didn't have to do this. But it was kind of like, hey, we got to treat, you know, engineers like engineers. It's just not a female-male thing. So it's good to get your degree and make sure that people know you have a degree and that you're not just there to help somebody else do their job, right? That's the difference between support and getting your own job, right? So, which you guys, I mean, are already a step ahead because you're getting your college degree, which is good. Future of the oil industry. I'll just touch on this real quick, because I know the subject pretty well. Is people are always wondering why we don't have electric cars or why we don't have solar cars, right? Well, do you guys see electric? Like every time you see a gas station, would you rather it be an electrical charging station? And can you imagine how much that would cost to change all the gas stations to electrical charging stations? And when you think about gasoline, like you have 20 gallons to fill up your car. So 20 gallons of gasoline can get you to San Francisco and back, right? Or up to San Francisco. And it would take a lot more electricity to get you to San Francisco. You can't take a golf cart, right, to San Francisco, right? Okay, so I mean, if you want to spend 5 days taking a golf cart, charging it overnight at a hotel or whatever, that kind of thing. So that's why it's a little bit impractical right now, because gasoline's so efficient and it's not that expensive, right? If you think about it. And I mean, if it got to the point where it's so expensive that you couldn't drive your car to school, then maybe you wouldn't drive your car to school, right? But right now, everyone can afford it. So to me, that's why it's real hard to have alternative fuels. Plus, if you use corn to make fuel, right, we wouldn't get to eat corn. So, right? I mean, wouldn't you say there would be no corn, right? Okay, that's an oil company's perspective. But, and plus, I don't know, you see a lot of these, I guess I'll just leave on this, like wind or solar stations. You guys see them out in the middle of nowhere? Well, it still costs money to get that energy to where it's needed, right? So you wouldn't be building, I mean, probably to fuel Cal State Bakersfield, you'd have to have, twice as much land for the solar things to fuel Cal State Bakersfield. That's how inefficient it is in a sense, right? So that's kind of why you don't see solar, solar
You'd have to
farms
have
up everywhere.
land twice the size of the campus in order to power the campus if you were doing this.
Well, like an area of the campus. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's hard to, it's inefficient if it's not right here. You see what I mean? Because you have to transport it or the land's expensive, right? So you
Would
wouldn't
we
wanna do
still
that.
need the equivalent? Would we need, like, if we basically covered the entire campus in
Yeah.
solar panel, like a roof of solar panels?
Well, that's what I mean.
Would that be enough, or do we
don't-
actually still need more?
I would say you can't power that much with it. Do you see what I mean? If you just did the roofs,
Mhm.
you might be able to power your own, like that building, right? But it wouldn't be powering an area that size of residential, for example, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, if you look into it, it really takes a lot of room to fully power everything. Because even PG&E, even with solar roofs and stuff, I mean, think about how much they're subsidizing those, right? It's like in my house the other day, I got a quote, $50,000, right, for the solar panels, right, to save like $70 a month. So it never really pays out, right?
It takes a lot of months for 70 a month is 700 a year, 800 basically. So 10 years is 8,000.
50 years.
Yeah. Okay. So
Okay, but the subsidies are like what makes it. Do you see? And so like that's what I mean. It's a lot less efficient than you think. Is all I'm saying to put that kind of stuff in. And so while gasoline prices are low, that's the number one. That's the easiest. And that's why other alternatives are having a hard time beating oil. Okay, so I mean it's just that kind of if you look into it, it's more inefficient than you think. That's why you don't see it everywhere, right? Otherwise, you'd see solar panels you see solar companies trying to sell it to you everywhere, but it's still not that efficient. And when it gets better, it could change. And when the oil prices get way up, it changes too. So that's kind of where we saw in the last few years, oil prices were way up. So alternative fuels end up being a good alternative, right?
So on that topic,
Yeah.
before going on,
That's about it.
is that it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think I covered most of it.
I got more to
Okay. Yeah, go
highlight,
ahead.
but segueing off of that,
Yeah.
like obviously the general situation in which we find ourselves as a global
Right.
industrial society right now
Yes.
is that basically the entire productive world as we know it would grind to a halt without fossil fuels right now.
Right now.
And the problem is that there's no other technology which is nearly as economical or efficient as burning
It's mostly
dead
efficient.
dinosaurs, basically.
Efficient. Yeah.
So where do you see, like you personally, your opinion, where do you see in the future like technology actually developing that does make sense on a large infrastructure scale?
Well, first I'll say these are just like my opinions. They're not just oil companies' opinions or what Chevron would think. But
This is
But
not
to
an
me-
official statement of Chevron here.
yeah, it's definitely not. Yeah, I don't want this out. Even though I don't work there anymore, it's okay. I don't know. They can go. I know lots of people there. To me, I mean, like I said, I want to start by saying Chevron's a really good company because Chevron really does kind of look at alternatives. They actually have a whole business unit that looks at this type of thing. And we're always trying to, think ahead because the demand right now, I mean, you saw oil prices go up and the demand was pretty much the same. I mean, people still say, hey, I'm still going to drive my car, right? I mean, not that many people stopped driving cars or decided, okay, no more cars for me, or I'm not going to fly anywhere, right? Think about the airline industry. They don't have alternate sources to get you to New York tomorrow, right? So anyway, how I see it going is really the oil is really a limited resource. That's what we gotta know, and it will get to a price where it is incentivizes people to look at alternate views. So I mean, I think to me, it's solar getting more efficient. Hydraulic is another one that we look at because a lot of the things on the coast, you get ocean, sea water, that pressure. It's just built-in natural resources that will become more efficient. And right now, like I said, even nuclear, right? Make it safer, cleaner, more efficient. The whole thing is about making it more efficient. But right now, the disparity in how efficient gasoline is versus the rest of them are too great, especially when oil prices are low. So an oil company is always going to go towards the one. I mean, if you think about it, I don't know if this is proprietary. These are just estimates, but it costs us about $30 or $40 in operating expenses per barrel of oil to get out of the ground. So when oil price is $100, here you got $60 for every barrel. And I told you how many barrels we have a day coming out of Kern River. That's quite a lot of money, right? So you're making all this money. We're reinvesting it and finding more oil, okay? But when the oil price is down, when you're barely selling it for what you're making it, then people don't go looking for more oil, right? And so to me, what's going to happen is eventually you'll run out of oil and the prices will be high to encourage you to look for more oil, but it eventually makes the other renewable energy more efficient. I mean, bottom line, even solar, I mean, it's cleaner, but it's not, you know, if you had a solar car, can you imagine? I mean, it still costs a lot. I mean, you go buy a solar car right now, it's probably going to cost you $500,000, I would guess. I don't know. Plus, the batteries are really heavy, and it's just inefficient.
So, the interesting thing that's becoming more apparent to me, just listening to you talk about, listening to you talk about the tech. Oh no, totally.
Right,
I always learn something. That's my job.
All right.
My job is
That's
teaching,
great.
but like the flip side, the flip side of the coin of being a teacher is that I'm always learning.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
see, my dream job, teaching.
Listening to you talk about the technology involved in extracting oil from the ground, transporting it, and the work that it enables, like whether it's internal combustion engines or other stuff, and the technology of climate change, as it were, is a totally separate area of scientific expertise.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, from a business point of view, we're going to raise the levels of the oceans 20 feet or so before we get done. Before economic equilibrium sets in and other technologies become more attractive. This is totally out of your field of scientific expertise, I imagine. But it seems like the realistic approach toward climate change is to accept that it's going to happen and think about what we can do to mitigate the bad effects, because I don't see any practical way that our world is going to stop burning fossil fuels until there's I wish it were so, but I don't see a realistic way that we're going to stop burning fossil fuels until we can support the lifestyle to which we've become accustomed, as it were, as a society.
I think that's it.
With another technology,
right?
So, what do you think? Are you familiar at all with what we could? I mean, this is out of your area of expertise, but obviously it's relevant to the oil industry overall. What can we do to mitigate the bad effects of the Manhattan being underwater, basically? Yeah. Until we get to a time where the economic equilibrium sets in. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, one thing I'll say, I mean, somebody asked me too why I retired is when you work full time at a job, you pretty much don't really have time to think about anything else, right? I worked probably 50 hours a week. I went to work about before 8 in the morning and I got home at 7, 8 at night. I mean, every day. And you get when you get older, you lose a little bit of energy for changing things, right? And you get a little bit into a routine where, hey, I get paid a lot of money, I have a nice house, nice car, I can go, I do what I want, that kind of thing. But it gets a little bit, so you're not really thinking, that you don't have the free time to think about it. But one of the reasons I think there's a lot of companies that are really spending full time thinking about making a difference. And one thing you guys don't know about me is I mentor high school students too. And I just had this talk the other day, but we were talking about filling out college applications and saying, hey, I want to change the world. And so one girl comes up to me and she says, well, when you say change the world, what do you mean? And I said, well, if you pick out something that you have a passion for, you really care about and want to do something to change that, that's what people, that's what we're looking for, is people to change the world or make a difference. And I think there's companies, a lot of smart people, especially like my friends. I have a lot of friends that are retired from Chevron too. We're always trying to come up with something that's needed that can make things better, or do something different. And I think there's going to be a group where, and even with solar, there's groups that come up with ways to sell solar. I mean, you see it all over the place, but we'll come up with something that I think, we'll come up with something that's a better alternative. I haven't really thought of it. I'd like to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I probably am working with some friends. I'm thinking of a few things that we could change around here. The girl that I talked to in high school really was talking about, hey, we want to, understand valley fever better, and maybe things that we can do around here so that to prevent it, because I think it does, discourage people from moving here, that kind of thing. But if you can think of one thing, I mean, a lot of people, as you guys know in the news, if you watch news, there's a lot of people anti-oil. And they're anti-oil because, pollution, Valdez, they spill oil all over the place, But the good thing about oil for me, I mean, creates a lot of jobs. I mean, people around here, really are dependent on these job creations. People buying houses, people buying stuff. It's probably the reason we have a lot of good restaurants, in town, a lot of good stores. And it really kind of hurts things when oil prices down. But like I said, if they can come up with something else where, smart people can work on it. I'd say Chevron does have a lot of smart people. I'll give them that. It's just that, to me, you're really just focused on office politics and really just doing your small job you're given, in a sense. I mean, not changing the world, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I'm gonna you mind if I kind of segue to different?
No, that's it. I'm pretty much
basically
done.
Kent is coming a little before 2.
Okay.
So we've got maybe 15, 20 minutes until he gets here.
Okay.
Are you in a hurry?
No, I'm
You
fine.
good?
I'm
Okay.
good.
So I'm just gonna segue to some things that I think would be interesting for the class.
Okay.
So segueing off of your comment about, working 50 hours, basically working 50 hours a week for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have a lot of time to pause and think about, how could things be different? So, Maddie, can you raise your hand?
All right.
I've got
Bureaucratic.
4 students in here who are focused on, they're doing their case studies on the oil business in one way or
okay.
another.
There you
So
go.
Maddie's one of them. Pooji here in front is the second. And then Zach, who's not here but would normally be back there in the back, is also focusing on petroleum. And then Marissa down this direction, can you wave, Marissa?
Okay.
Are all focusing on that. So starting with their questions, Maddie had mentioned, she was one of the ones that asked your advice to other women in a male-dominated oil industry. But she also, which I'd love to hear more about, but it's a good segue to your hours per week comment. Because she mentioned, how did you balance the competitive all-hours nature of the business with your personal life? It would be interesting to hear over the course of your career at Chevron how you, how are you not insane right now? How did you manage to at least stay relatively sane as a person with the kind of hours?
You don't know that, do you?
Well, I don't know you very well yet, but you have a couple twitches every once in a while. But otherwise, you seem pretty normal.
Well, okay, so as far as balancing work and life, in the office, what they'll do is try to encourage everybody to balance work life. For example, at Chevron, we had every other Friday off, so I can't really say, I worked every day, but it started to get to the point where it's okay, we have 3-day weekends and 2-day weekends, and the 2-day weekends are like 1-day weekends, right? You start to take them for granted, but because we had every other Friday off, we worked 9-hour days. And so 9-hour days, and then you add one for lunch. So that's really like 10 hours you're spending in the office. So what happens is you end up, most of your friends and the people that you spend time with are at work, right? And you know, most of them you don't even like, to be honest, but you gotta work with them, you know. So like you're on these projects where everybody, you know, and especially when you get older, you have a lot of young people that are always trying to, you know, tell you don't know what you're doing or to beat you out. It's very competitive at times because there's people that are very aggressive and want to get ahead. So for example, you might work, you know, in school, you guys ever work together on group projects, right? You work on a group project and then one person wants to take all the credit, like they thought of all the ideas or they did everything. That's kind of what work is sometimes, where people do that. And so the work-life balance thing doesn't always work out sometimes for females because, I mean, I don't have any kids, but I have friends who had kids, and what they do is they take off for 6 months or they're off for 6-8 weeks. And so people tend to think of them as, oh, they need to go home and take care of their kid. And so sometimes it's, I mean, they won't admit it, but what happens is they kind of start lagging in their career a little bit sometimes. And and then they become more complacent into just not moving, right? For example, if their kids want to stay in the same school, that kind of thing. And in a work environment, if you move, you generally get a promotion or you move up higher if you move to a different city. So, is it you that asked?
No, that was actually Maddie. We'll get to Marissa in a second.
Okay,
That was
so
Maddie.
so to me, there are females, especially, they're like, hey, I don't want to work, I just want to get married, right? Or I would rather not work. I saw a lot of people not want to continue working, but it's kind of a personal choice. I mean, there's men too that probably did a little bit more like inclined to do what their wife wants. As far as their wife, there's men that have wives that want to stay in one place. For example, in Bakersfield, if their wives like Bakersfield, they like their kids going to school here, they might stay here just for them. And so there's just choices people make. But I guess my advice would be is I don't think nobody has everything, right? I mean, people that work probably think wives that don't work have a lot of free time. They don't have to do anything, but I'm sure it's not the case, right? So you got to kind of just pick what's important to you, I'd say, probably. I don't know, does that answer your question, or what were you thinking more?
Yeah, I guess
A little bit? Because that's hard when you think about a female, which sometimes, but right now I'd have to say it's pretty much 50-50. They hire a lot of females at Chevron, so it's not so out of normal. Before, when I started, it's probably more like 8-1 males to females engineers. So,
If I could comment briefly before sort of moving us on. I mean, I'm a boy, not a girl, so
your perspective.
I'm talking from my own perspective, but the research that I do, one of my co-authors, really good friend of mine, does a lot of research on basically gender differences in different careers. And what I think, I mean, from what Valerie just said and from my colleagues' research and just from my own experience, I think like you'd be surprised, like Valerie was saying, at how there is relative equity in hiring, you know? It's not a case where you can't get a job or can't be taken seriously as an engineer as a woman. I mean, it's 2015.
Right. Yeah.
There's in a lot of parts of our world, there's not, at least here in the United States, there's not formal discrimination in that case. The issue is more subtle.
Yeah.
It's our competitive culture in most jobs in the U.S. Is based around like being willing to sacrifice all other like personal priorities in order to like sell your soul to the job, basically. And
people do that too.
It is less of a sacrifice for men to do that often than it is for women. It's a bigger opportunity cost for many women to make that sacrifice. So I think if you want to continue to, it's more costly, basically. It's more costly and more challenging for women to sort of have it all, as it were, than for men. It's less of a sacrifice that many men in our society have to make in order to like
Have
be
kids
ruthlessly competitive in the job market compared to women. And I think that's the issue. It's not an overt thing. It's a subtle competitive disadvantage, basically, because of your other priorities.
I think one thing I could say too to that is, in my case, to me, I think it almost helped me because expectations sometimes are not as high for females when I started. Because for me, I mean, almost the guys were a little bit like, "Wow, you're pretty smart for a female." So then they'd be like you don't expect it. I mean, it's kind of it's sexist, right? Like they wouldn't say that now, but at the time I came in,
Oh no,
they said a lot of that kind of stuff. Huh? Yeah. Well, they're not supposed to say it, but they. I think it can work to your advantage a little bit because in my case, there are a lot of females that weren't too. They just didn't do very well in the oil industry because they wanted to be treated different or they didn't get along. I had a lot of really good guy friends, so I got along really well with guys. So I think people felt comfortable around me. But there's girls, I think, in the oil business that want to be treated different, or they'd be like, "Hey, I'm the only girl and you guys aren't listening to me." And it wasn't because she was a girl; it's just because she's, nonsensical or whatever. Maybe her ideas weren't very good, right? But then it was like, Danny, I need to be listened to. And it just doesn't work that well. Don't you agree? You just can't want to be different.
I think it's a lot of different issues. I was just going to throw in there that I think it, like, over the course of your career, it becomes, it's just bar is much higher for the number of balls you have to juggle and ways that you have to find to like balance both ends. As a woman, being competitive in the job market compared to a man, it's like it's easier. Like it's not a formal. Obviously, there's other people who are not as open-minded as me, and they might actually think, "Well, you're pretty smart for a girl," Like I generally expect that women are smarter than men, in my experience. But whether it's male or female, like I tend to see everybody as equal and equally capable, but
you've probably seen a lot of smart women though too, so you know it. Sometimes guys might not have been around them as much too.
I suppose I don't know,
But
I like the thing I was just going to add is I think that there's a challenge. There's a challenge in if you want to have kids, if you want to have a family, it's more sort of, it's a bigger time biological investment for women than it is for men. I mean, there's different things that.
I think the other thing too is like the guys at work don't tend to go home when the kids are sick or something like that, or leave as much, and they see the females as doing that more often, so they're not at work or not seen there as much, and the guys have their wives do it, right? Or they have stay-at-home moms, where most females don't have stay-at-home dads that are taking care of everything, right? So that's kind of, it's more just a time or perception that they're going to have to go home and pick up the kids, or they're running off because they're sick, or that kind of thing. I saw that a lot.
Maddie, what do you think? So, you posed the question originally, and you're nodding your head like. You clearly have encountered this like a frustrating attitude at times in your own life. So what do you think about the situation?
Well, I think like I have a coworker. She's brilliant. I'm not sure what her like official job title is, but she's like a chemical engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And so her kid was sick, and so she was flying in from Houston, and she ended up having to postpone her trip. And everyone was like, "Oh, I can't believe that!" And like. So it ended up causing her like a bad reputation because her kid was sick and her husband wasn't able to help. And so I see a lot of stuff like that, and it's just kind of frustrating. And then like just in general, like offhand comments that are funny that aren't funny at all. And it's just like I just want to be like, it's 2015.
Yeah, because we had actually in Chevron we had this kind of a women's. It wasn't really like a women's lib group, but it was kind of a women's women's group that we had to support each other on issues, and so we would talk about things like that. I mean, I was more of an advisor on this, but some of the issues I think people had was a little bit of being aggressive too, of men not liking women showing them up. Some guys can't take it very well, so it's kind of like, yeah. And so you have that against you too, where you can't always be as confident or arrogant, I guess. Like guys have a problem with it because it makes them look bad. But that's the way it goes. I mean, so, I don't know. We'll see. Chevron really tries to push, equality in the workplace, and they say it a lot, but it's kind of like Jeremy said, it is just the subtle differences, I guess. So, or Dr. Woods.
It's fine.
Professor Woods.
It's not right and it's not fair. I would totally it shouldn't. There shouldn't be you shouldn't be penalized for taking care of your freaking kids. It's ridiculous.
Well, she wasn't like officially penalized.
No, I know, but
No,
you are
it's-
informally. You get that right. I
I'm glad you
understand.
agree with me because it really does happen. I had a friend who she had 4 kids in 4 years, and her name was Veronica and mine's Valerie, and so people were like, "Oh, Veronica and Valerie are so different," but they'd call me Veronica sometimes. I'm like, "Don't call me Veronica," but Veronica was like she was really frazzled all the time, and she had 4 kids at home. I mean, so there was just at that time there was a real contrast of personalities between both of us.
I think
Alexis?
I heard recently that Amazon is implementing like the idea of paternal leave, so like dads can take time off. I don't know. I just heard that recently.
Yeah.
They're not the only one. I mean, there's other companies that like allow for that. You have to have dads that want to take it.
Yeah.
Like
I think
honestly,
they-
it's not just about the company offering.
See, I think you're exactly right because I think
it's-
we might have it too, but I can't think of anyone who took it. I mean, like I remember this guy in the middle of the project. He was having a kid, and he was working that morning, and then he went and had his kid, and then he came back to work the next day. So, I mean, they can take 3 days off for free, and most of them don't even take that. But I think it's like you take a career hit if you do that a little bit.
You
I would.
would, but I mean, like
I mean, they can choose to do it, but yeah, it should. Those are just the decisions you have to make.
in general, like as a bigger picture comment than just gender inequities, like from my own experience, like spending half a decade in Germany, half a decade in Brazil, and then the rest of my career here, Americans work too damn hard. Like as a culture, we're obsessed with workaholism and we're obsessed with getting ahead.
And
we
see
never stop to smell the roses and enjoy
when
it.
you're in the workplace, you feel that too, because you see other people do it, and you're like, well, they're getting ahead, they're an idiot, or whatever. I could do better than them, but they're willing to do whatever, whatever it takes, and they're going to move, wherever, that kind of thing. So there's just trade-offs.
As a society, I mean, everybody in here is sort of the next generation of our society. I mean,
You guys.
honestly, every company that like every manager that does not like once you guys get into management and leadership positions in the world over the course of your careers, if you don't continue to perpetuate this workaholic rat race, eventually the culture will change. It's not fair and it's not right, but in general, men or women, Americans are obsessed with like staying ahead of the Joneses. The only civilized country in the world with only 2 weeks of paid vacation. Kent, come on in. It's ridiculous. And I think that bigger issue is part of it as well. I mean, it's not just, it's that as a society, like we're obsessed with who can like work the longest hours, who can be the toughest, and then by like process of survival elimination, you get to be like the king of the hill or the queen of the hill, and it's a it's a cultural thing that we have to change as a society. Sorry to interrupt. Go
No,
ahead.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, like Chevron, you had people like saying, "Hey, I got in at 5 a.m. this morning." I'm like, who cares? I mean, but you'd be like every day talk about what was happening at 5 a.m. watching the sun come up and stuff like that. I mean, but he would say it just. I mean, he's probably reading the paper or whatever, but he'd say it just because he wanted everyone to hear that he did it. And people did work. I mean, sometimes people worked all night. And so, I mean, some of the younger ones, they have the energy to do it because they want to leave an impression, right? And in a big company, it's harder to stand out with, doing that kind of stuff. So. Did you have another question? Or you guys, did I answer your questions? Yeah.
You said that Chevron was looking like, or we heard about other renewable energies. Is Chevron looking at one certain one?
Well, no, they're always looking at. They have a group that looks at that kind of thing. So I think we get a lot of proposals for it. Chevron's so big that people always want to pitch things to Chevron and try to get money on the back. So I think it's just that we have people assigned to listening to ideas. You guys are so there's nothing specific, but they do look at. I mean, for example, we give property away for solar stations. There's a solar station up near Los Terras, like lots of property to have solar. Of course, our parking lot didn't have solar in our parking lot. We didn't even have shade, so but they do. For testing, maybe, or people to try out things. And like I said, I mean, we're an oil company. An energy company. So to me, it's really right now our focus is on getting oil out of the ground because that's the most efficient and it's the most profitable. If oil prices dip any further, it might not be the most profitable. Another idea might be better. So.
Valerie, I want to make sure. Fuji, did we get to your oil barge question? I don't think we did. Do you remember the question? Can you ask it again?
Yeah, I was just asking about how big the oil barge industry is in America, because I know in Indonesia it's competitive, and I don't know if Chevron has their own oil barges or they have other companies.
No, I think those are contracted out, but the oil barges are probably, you're talking about LNG probably.
Well, my family has a combination barges.
Okay.
They have a slip line and a water line.
Oh,
So
okay.
I wanted to know how big the industry is here and how they do it, because in Indonesia we do it through bid tenders to get projects.
Yeah, that's it. I don't think U.S. is as much because U.S. mostly has onshore. The reason why oil barge is bigger in Indonesia is Indonesia doesn't use as much energy as so. U.S. uses all the energy that U.S. produces, so we don't export oil, right? So or LNG, so it's more imported. So it's probably not as big a company. I mean, I don't know too much about it, but that's why is we're not exporting oil. So they may contract it, I think, not own it, because we make money off of getting oil out of the ground, selling it, and then the refineries are distributing it, right? That's pretty much it. And because we don't need to transport it overseas, we might pay somebody to transport it to U.S., but that's usually in conjunction with other companies. Is it Jakarta?
Yeah, Jakarta.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Actually, I spent some time there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Fuji, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I think that I'm not the authority on that.
Yeah.
That's what I would guess. It's why it's not as big.
So, Valerie, Kent,
Okay.
you can
Yeah,
tell
go
is
ahead.
here.
Yeah, you bet.
But
Hey, Kent.
before,
All right. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I know Jeremy told me you were saying
Yeah.
I
I wanted to, I
barbecue.
didn't realize she was.
I forgot.
I would've got
I
here.
forgot that we
That's
we
okay.
actually had Stanford
You didn't
all in
miss it.
common, and we all met the
Yeah.
same night. So if I had realized that Valerie, if I had made the connection
the
that I
same
know
team.
both of you from the same source, I would have told you before.
And
That's
here we
okay.
are today at the
Yeah.
University of Bakersfield.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No,
Good.
no,
So-
it was kind of fun. So, hope you guys learned something.
Does
You know.
anybody have a question that you
Nothing
didn't get to for Valerie before we switch over to speaker number 2?
Scott? Nothing from the middle group. There's only 3.
Okay, well let's give Valerie a big round of
All
applause.
right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you
for,
bet.
for
It was
coming.
fun. All right.
Folks, I tell you what, we need to move Kent's car quick. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
let's part 2. Very exciting about the agriculture industry here.
Wow.
The two big industries here in Kern County. You just heard about petroleum. Now you're going to hear about ag. 5-minute break. Come right back here and we'll get started again. Okay.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Good seeing
Okay.
you. All
I'll
right,
see you all in
okay.
5 minutes. Okay.
I don't know if they do it online.
I'll give it.
Well, we have to be off by 3.
One, two, max. So there's like that. But it has to be like.
I can drive one of the police cars.
What is more commonly known right now, they have out of state like recycling stuff. But what Austin is doing, he's come up with a device that will basically like bundle all the plastic that are being used to like irrigate, and get out of your way basically. He started out thinking that the money would be in the recycling of that material, but the money's actually getting it out of the way. The money they can make off of the
So that we don't have to haul it safely to the landfill.
basically, yeah.
And then they can, there's not big money in recycled, we drip tubing and tree twine and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. Like, kind of a bundling machine that will bundle up all the stuff and get it out of your way.
So he's tonight after me.
Yeah.
That class is at, give it
5:15. So you'll start talking at 5:15. He'll get there around 6,
5:15 tonight, okay.
and then you'll take
I'm
off.
gonna go do some errands.
No, that's fine. I didn't know. I was gonna take you to lunch after this, and then if you have some errands, I got some things I gotta do too. So that's fine.
So that's 5:15.
Yeah.
Okay, let's.
Okay. So if you could stand here, I'm actually recording this for the people that aren't here. Move a little bit. You're taller than Valerie, so if you could stand there. Yeah, there we go. Now we got, like, we can see your head. Okay, part 2. This is Kent Stenderup. I told you guys a little bit about, he runs a significant family farm out in Arvin. Other than that, there's not a whole lot I told you. I sent you his LinkedIn profile, so I'll let Kent talk about himself and answer your questions as well.
Very good. I am a third-generation family farmer. And, we farm between Arvin and Wheat Patch. Who's not familiar with where Arvin is? How's that? No? Okay, good. And third generation, my grandparents immigrated here from Denmark, Northern Europe in the late 20s. And the family farm dynamics, I could use this whole grease board and just do everything
You want
with
to?
it. But we're not gonna get into that. We'll maybe talk about that a little bit. Oil and ag, you guys are very fortunate today to have Valerie here. She probably gave you a very good perspective on, this is strategy, correct?
Yeah, this is
strategy.
this is senior capstone course, so this is the last
Very good. So it's upper
Carson,
level
take it before
graduate or upper level business classes. I graduated, probably Dr. Wells mentioned, fellow Stanford grad. I have my MBA from Cal State Bakersfield. It was kind of reassuring. I walked on campus and my phone wanted me to log into the Wi-Fi. So they still remember me, in a good sense, I think. So anyway, that was interesting to me. Simple. Oil and ag. Oil, you realize how counties run. They run off of sales tax and other tax, and assessed tax, and assessed value tax. The oil price is down right now. The county will be looking for things to, their strategy is going to be to which departments are we going to cut, because oil has dropped, what, in half in the last year or 2 years. I don't know if that already touched on that at all.
A little bit.
Ag supplies just plain a lot of jobs. There's nothing that's really taxable other than our farmland, which the value of that farmland continues to go up. And continues to go up, and then we pay an assessed value on that, on our property taxes. Strategy is for that, maybe the county can get all of that, get what they lose in the oil side, gain it on the assessed value on the ag side. Our operation is very diversified, probably overly. We have almonds, juice grapes, and then row crops. Row crops range from processing tomatoes, carrots, garlic, potatoes, and sometimes cotton and wheat. So we, like anybody, like a business portfolio, or what you would call diversified. That enables us to, in case one thing's really bad, hopefully the other ones pick up for it, right? Okay, you can understand that business strategy. The most businesses. Do you have a black one? Red? I don't like to use red.
I don't think I have red. I got green. If you like green, better. But
So most organizations have there are, I don't know, there's the finance, MG, MT, and the, what would the other one be? The stakeholders. There's 3 parts of that business. There's shareholders, stakeholders, the owner. In a family business, it would be the family. Then there you have management. That may be family also. Then you have the finance side of it. This is the way I look at it. In my operation, then up here, in a true family farm, you have that. What does that stand for? Grandma. My operation, until the sweet lady passed away, it was grandma. It looks like GM, yes. Okay. The management wants to continue to buy new equipment and develop this, or plant other crops and buy new equipment and develop that. The finance people worked with that to find out how to do that. The shareholders, stakeholders, owners, all they want is return on their investment, right? You want to have over 5%. You want a 10% return on your investment, right? That doesn't happen nowadays. 20 years ago, that's what it was at. That's when interest rate was 12 to 15% type of thing. Interest rate today is what? Way down low, 2 and 3% type of thing, whatever figure you're going to use. So any investment nowadays, you'd like to have a 5% return. That's really tough in farming if you go out to buy land. So you go out and rent the land. Those people, I'm going around a lot of different directions here. I'm just trying to show how you have to be accountable to the people that are actually the owners, the shareholders. Management must be accountable to them, and the finance people have to have good financial strategy. As far as strategy, you guys are familiar with the California drought to a certain extent, right? We hear a lot about it. I had the good fortune of serving on the Almond Board of California. That's a federal marketing order that was established in the 1950s. 3 cents for every pound of almonds goes to the Almond Board of California. And with that, we do global and domestic marketing, nutrition research, production research, and to a certain extent, a little bit of lobbying. Not too much lobbying, though. So that is what has increased this almond. The amount of marketing. 70% of almonds are exported, depending on which way you look at it. The United States of America has the largest per capita income. I think it's 2 pounds per almond of almonds per person. You guys can Google that up and correct me if you want, but I'm speaking in general here. If we could increase, how many people are there in China today? 1 billion people or
Over
more?
a billion, I
Okay.
think.
If every person,
Heading towards 1.5.
if every person ate 1 handful a year, we could plant enough almonds in California to feed China. 1 handful a year. Okay, that'll be a quarter of a pound type of thing. We would not be able to sustain that. Almonds are very nutritious. The protein involved, it's good for, it's negative on the cholesterol side, and it's good for heart disease, which is what that means. So you see all these plantings of almonds. Where I'm going with this is there's something the Almond Board has developed called reputation management. Now, this is for a strategy. How do you have something that's very profitable? We're making a lot of money on almonds today. We're continuing to plant. Almonds use a hell of a lot of water. We used to grow a lot of cotton here. Cotton took about, let's just say, 2 acre-foot of water to grow a crop of cotton. Almonds use twice as much. California is in a drought situation. Why are these farmers planting almonds? Well, because they're profitable and nutritious and everything else. So the Almond Board of California has gone into reputation management mode, trying to justify the continued planting of almonds and drilling more wells. It's a tricky situation. What are we all supposed to say? Well, my family, the Stendera family, we're going to quit planting until there's more water. That's the righteous way to do it. Is that right, Dr. Dr. Woods? The righteous way would be we'll just quit planting until there's more water and the aquifer comes back up.
It might be
Well, I
righteous,
guarantee
but
you
it's
my
not
neighbors are
realistic.
going to plant more. What, pardon?
I said it might be righteous, but I doubt that it's realistic.
Be realistic. That's exactly right. As long as there's profit, we will be there. It's a good, healthy profit. So it creates jobs and that type of thing. As I mentioned, the family farm are unique. I think I overheard Valerie speaking a little bit about the work ethics, and she talked about getting to work at 5 a.m. and that type of thing.
Yeah, towards the tail end, we were talking about like work-life balance a little bit.
Mhm.
We were actually a lot of people. I mean, the petroleum business is traditionally kind of a stereotypically male business, and they were asking some questions about what's it like to try and balance work and life as a female in particular in petroleum. So that was what got us to that point.
Yeah,
but
okay.
like, there's a whole different set of issues of balancing work life when you're actually working together with your family.
Working together with your family, more is expected of you all the time. Is anybody here involved with a family operation of any kind? Whether it's a restaurant or anything else like that? Okay,
We got several. Can you
So-
put your hands up high?
a few of you are aware that things are different, right? In an organization, was she at Chevron? Was Valerie at Chevron
Yeah.
era?
She started
They have-
out at Unical, and then
Okay.
Chevron bought Unical.
So
So
they have a handbook that says that you have to do this, and then you'll get this, and if you don't do this, this is where you'll be. Now, in a family organization, everybody's expected to do 110% all the time. And then you have the sister-in-law thinking that her husband is the hardest working person in the organization. And then the brother-in-law, he's gone every weekend. He thinks he only needs to work 5 days a week. Well, that farm runs 7 days a week, right? So you have those issues. In any type of family business, there's been doctoral theses done on the family farm and the family organizational model. We don't need to talk about that today. We can talk about ag or anything else you want, or what a great university you're at here, by the way. I call it the university, and people look at me He said, "You mean Cal State?" I said, "Yes, the university. That's what I mean. It's a great university, and you're part of it. And it looks like they're going to have a really good basketball team. Correct? Who follows basketball, right? No.
A little bit.
Okay, we'll see. They're gonna be good this year. Okay, Dr. Wells, anything? What direction do you want me to go from here?
I've been kind of highlighting questions that I wanted to make sure to get to.
Okay.
Like, I got 4 people in here who are like, I do, but God, was it like, or but God, love Tron. Sorry, man. Was your hand up for a question, or were you just stretching? Go ahead, man.
All right. Obviously, you know the price of almonds has been really, really high lately.
They're darn expensive in the store, aren't they? Yes.
Yeah. Well, obviously, here in America, not too many people. I don't know too many people that go out and actually buy almonds. But I was talking to some people. They're saying the reason why it's high, obviously, you said it's exported, and because it goes into so many different foods. In the past, when almond prices went like really high, what they would do is they'd substitute it with peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would bring the price back down. My question is, do you think that's going to happen, and how soon in the future do you think the almond price is going to come back down?
Okay, the almond price is softening, and it will we're increasing production with the new plants, not this year, but in the future. Peanuts are not an actual tree nut. They have their own issues. Almonds 2 years ago surpassed peanuts as the #1 snack nut. But there's a good partnership there. That means snacking. As long as people are snacking, and then snacking, a healthy snacking, and consider health-wise and nutrition-wise, almonds outperforms peanuts. Okay, it doesn't have the fat in it. Okay, that the peanuts do.
But my question was you don't see say within the next 5 years, so the price dropping I don't know if you remember, I think it was in 99 2000 when it went from $3.50 a pound, 68 cents a pound or something like that. You don't see any big drop like that coming soon.
Not a big drop like that, no. There's enough global demand that's been developed now. This is on the business side. Now you're thinking about the consumer, and I'm a consumer also, but we don't foresee. So today the grower's getting, let's just say $4 a pound, and recently, as 3 years ago, it was $2 a pound. So
it's high now.
It could come back down if you look up the past histories. Hopefully, it won't come down. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of private equity monies who are putting in a lot of these new development orchards. They're going to lose their butts. They're out paying $20,000 to $25,000 an acre for open land and then developing almond orchards on top of it, which has raised the whole price. It's priced myself and my family out of buying any land.
Yeah, I see it going at 40,000 an acre, just with young trees on it.
For a developed orchard, 40,000 an acre. Very good. Are you involved in ag?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm trying.
Look, Freed, if you could actually, this is actually a nice, you raising your hand now is a good segue because there are 4 students that are doing their case analysis in this class on ag companies.
Okay.
Love Creek's one of them. And you also raised your hand about being involved with family business. So I don't know completely your connection to the ag business. You want to explain a little bit to Kent?
I'm a farmer.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
Your family has some.
Yeah,
almonds?
I'm retired, so I'm just by myself right now. So it's been kind of hard this year. Obviously, almonds and stuff's really high, but a lot of other commodities are just really down. We do alfalfa. Last year was I think the highest one was $250 a ton, and the last one I sold was $130 a ton.
There's a lot of hay still stacked in the barns, isn't there? Yeah. From 2015, big turnaround just in the hay, which really doesn't make sense.
Yeah, especially because of the drought too. You would think, you know what I mean?
The drought, and then a lot of the new almond plantings went into former alfalfa ground.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with and I'm not an expert on this, the fuel, the alcohol fuel. We use the corn that's distilled for gasohol, right? The ethanol. So when the corn price was up, the alfalfa price followed it down, and the corn came back down, and alfalfa followed it back down too.
But it's not just that; it's everything. Even raisins fell this year. Raisins were down a lot too.
Raisins are down, tomatoes are down. Quite a few things. Yeah, almonds are the only true bright spot. this point. You're right. You're very astute on commodity prices.
Lovepreet, if I can segue from that question, like you said your dad retired, it's just you now. I assume like did your dad start the farm? Were your grandparents involved too?
Nah, that's just my dad.
So if we switch from like the agriculture side of things to the family business side of things, do you have any questions or observations about what it's been like to work with your dad and how it's been for Kent? Like, you are second generation, and the kids coming up are third, right? Or is that correct?
I'm third.
Okay, so the kids coming up are 4th.
Mhm.
Okay, you said grandma. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
do you have some questions or observations about your own experience working together with your dad as a family member?
Yeah, like it's a lot of conflict. Usually, like I like someone who's been in it, they always think like, oh, you know, the price will come back up. Let's wait. But I don't like to take that much of a risk. Like when I get it while the price is up, like for example, price like earlier in the year was $200 a ton per day, and I decided to wait, and now it's like 100, like I told you, 150, 160.
Mhm.
You know, I mean that's $40 a ton. That adds up thousands of dollars. You know, at the end of the day. So it's just like. Which way to go, you know, that's the biggest conflict.
And your dad disagreed with you basically about
Yeah.
where to bet on your crops and prices?
Yeah, I was right.
Have you had any of the same issues in your family,
all
Kent?
the time. All the time.
How would you
We have
respond
a
to that? or
variety
comment
of grapes and Thompson seedless grapes. We have 90 acres. We just pushed out 190 acres. We need to push out. Sign of the times. The labor is killing us, and the juice concentrate price is really down now. It'll take a couple years. Argentina's been shipping. Grape juice concentrate is used for jams, jellies, ocean spray drinks, and somebody having any of the fruit drinks where it says no sugar added, use grape juice concentrate. Okay, so that's an ingredient market, and the price is down. Argentina has been shipping tanker loads into here to the Port of Oakland and Philadelphia recently, and just really cut our market. So we have to hit the ground running, take out some vines, and plant something else. We have a 90-acre vineyard that should also come out in addition to the other 190 acres. Because I've showed my father and my cousin, who are the two people I work with all the time, that we're going to lose $1,000 an acre. At this price, which is what the price will be at this yield, we're going to lose $1,000 an acre. We're going to pull the plug now, don't even farm it next year, push them out now or do something. Sometimes they get that mentality, oh no, it'll come back. It always does. So that's what you're dealing with that mentality. Now your father too, can he keep up with the numbers as far as how much more everything continues to be?
Yeah.
Your father's not much older than I am.
Nah, he's younger.
Pardon?
I think he's younger.
Yeah. But when you get to the older generations, they cannot keep up. Your own grandparents can't believe that you spent $100 for a pair of jeans, can they? No, that type of thing. It's the same thing. They can't believe that we spent over $100,000 for a tractor or whatever type of implement it was. It just doesn't seem, because they never spent that much for it. Or that somebody spent $40,000 for a car or something like that. There's something about that, and that shows. What we try to get from our elders is the sense of, what are we going to call it, Dr. Woods? The sense of holding tight to the purse strings, being frugal, right? Everybody has to have a certain amount of that. You must have, if you spend everything you have, boom, 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 then you're not going to have anything after a while. That's the point. That's why the finance team or the finance side of any organization keeps track of you. And sometimes that's the sense of the controller, who happens to be the controller in any type of operation. Quite often that's the grandmother or that type of thing. Okay, as far as the money flow, who gets what?
Staying on the same topic, Anna, I see you smiling, like thinking about your own family's business. I wanted to ask you and Poochie, your experience working together with family and questions you may have for Kent, like shared experiences in working together in a relatively large and successful family business. Can you speak up a little bit so that they make trailers the commercial trailers, the ones that like they're competitors with Great Dane and Wabash National.
Okay.
And actually, I just want to share a story about this.
Please, can you speak a little louder though, because
Yeah.
I can't hear you very well.
Grandfather started the business, just working with iron and all this, and then my grandfather and his brother took over, and they expanded it to Eastern Europe and these kind of things. But the last 20 years, they were in charge. These two, my grandfather and his brother, they didn't talk to each other. They
For
had-
20
Your
years.
father and his brother, and they were partners.
They were partners. They worked. One was responsible for production, one for sales.
Uh-huh.
And they lived at the company for 20 years without talking to each other. And there were other employees who, delivered messages to between them. And then my mother and her cousin took over, and they both so scared of the same thing happening. So they actually worked together better than probably in normal.
And the company did better.
I mean, I think it's a combination of the older thinking and experience from my grandfather and his brother, and combining it with now, my mom's and her cousins, more modern thinking, different way of. It's hard for me to explain.
That's okay. Say it. What did you want to say in German? That's okay.
I'm just saying, what I think personally, the most important thing is that you combine the knowledge of and the experience of the older generation with the modern thinking of the new generation.
That's very important. Yes, yeah. We still need the older generation to help us because they do have a certain amount of knowledge. And, my point is, as far as them keeping up with it, the numbers get bigger, that type of thing. And then sometimes, just because we always did it this way, we shouldn't have to always do it this way. You can't adjust with the times.
I would be interested, however, to build on. I've heard other a friend of mine is a sales director for what was the sales director for a while for an Italian company that makes children's toys, and they had the same issue between the brothers there. The two brothers, the co-owners of the company, would not speak with each other. They had employees send messages back and forth. They would not speak to each other. It's a family conflict thing. Have you, over the course of the business, Kent, had issues with them? Yeah, honestly, you can be successful with the conflict. You can be successful without conflict. There's different ways you have to deal with it, and sometimes there's issues that you have to build and work around in a family business that you just wouldn't have in a non-family business. Do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Sometimes that's actually, they work better that way. I hate to say it. Sometimes they are successful or something. That's not the common. That's not okay. There are multi-billionaires that didn't go to college, right? Maybe you guys can name some of them, right? And then say, hey, look at me. I didn't go to college. I didn't need anything. Well, yeah, that's a very minuscule portion, though. Or I didn't go past whatever grade, that type of thing. That does happen once in a while. I'm a big fan of education and more education. I continue to go to seminars as far as learning about new almond growing techniques or whatever. I'm involved. I think you guys looked at the LinkedIn. The California Potato Research Advisory Board, and that's another marketing order where every potato pays a certain percentage into that, and then we do research. So this isn't marketing, this is just on production research, as far as through diseases and seed quality. And also with the California Tomato Research Institute, same type of apparatus that we meet up at UC Davis once a year and award the research money to the people that want to help us learn better ways to grow tomatoes, for simple like that. As a matter of fact, just last week, Dr. Negrini here at Cal State Bakersfield, the California California Resource Energy Center, has been developed here over here at Science number 3. They've got some awesome equipment. They're going to help. We're looking into helping fund some of their research into reclaiming water what different types of water, whether it's oil field production water or gray water, whatever, and getting it back into the water grid, so to speak. And historically, the Almond Board of California has sent most of their research money to UC Davis. Why not send it to Cal State University of Bakersfield, right? So that's what we're looking at. And that's really where there's enough of us Kearney County board members that have said that, and it doesn't have to go to Davis.
I agree. I don't think it should go to Davis. I think it should come right here. Fuji, do you have
Dr.
any?
Mitchell might second that too. You know, he might even give us our own parking place if we got more money.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Fuji, do you have any questions or comments about working together with family?
Well, my family business is just me, my mom, and my dad. We have a few companies in Indonesia, and throughout the whole time, it's just my mom and my dad working, but they never really communicated on what each other were doing. So my dad would be doing one thing, and my mom would be the one that just signs like the contracts or like papers. So they would never communicate how one person would be doing one thing or like how another person would be doing one thing. So now it's just like we don't really know. We're trying to figure out how my dad did everything. Because now it's just me and my mom. So I think communication is key between like two people. Between family, it's always nice to know what everyone's doing so everyone's in the loop.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So how your mother didn't know what was your dad like the product development?
Like
Or-
my dad.
I don't know what the product was. It doesn't matter, even if if it's financial or.
My dad he basically ran the business because my mom is
It's
Indonesian.
shipping mostly, isn't it?
Yeah, manpower and all that stuff. But my mom is Indonesian and my dad is American, and foreigners aren't allowed to own business in Indonesia. So my mom owned the business, so she dealt with like paperwork and all that stuff, and my dad did all like decisions and strategies. So they were never like together doing that. It was just really separate.
So now you and your mother are trying to
Trying to figure out how he did everything, like the strategies, like the type of planning, and just everything that he was doing. That's what we're trying to figure out now.
I get it.
I can't remember the other hands of people that are involved with family businesses. Yanira, I think you raised yours, right?
My family is really united. I think it's just because we come from like a Mexican background, and
What's the business?
We have bakeries and we have restaurants, and we usually come together like every Sunday and like we tend to talk about the business and stuff. But we don't really have any we have competition between the family members, so that's about it.
So you have general meetings every Sunday, once a week.
Well, not general meetings, but we have get-togethers. Like we have barbecues, and usually that's when we tend because some of my uncles work at different locations than my grandpa, and my other uncles are my aunts. So that's when we usually come together. But usually when we come together, it's usually competition between brother and brother. Say like, oh, I'm doing it better this way. Like, oh, mine's working better. Like, I make the best bread, or I make the best dish. Like, oh, we're selling more. Oh, you should do this. Like, usually like competition that way. But that's all a conflict. But
It's healthy competition.
it's healthy, but at the same time, they're like, my grandma's like, she's like the one who makes them like, don't fight with your brothers. Like, get their suggestions, but sometimes they're like, they put them down, but then they get over it. But it's all about competition between the brothers. What bakery or restaurant is getting more revenue.
Will one of them or yourself be the CEO one day?
They want me or my brother or my cousins to take over one day, but I just can't. It's for me, I feel like it's too much work. Like, yeah, they make good money and stuff, but they're there 24 hours every single day.
Yeah.
And vacation-wise, like, they have to fight for it. I feel like sometimes like, it's harder to find vacation time in your family business than asking your employer. Because they're like, well, you had that weekend off last time. Like, why do you get this one? And there's conflict.
That's what I mentioned
Yeah,
about the other partner being gone every weekend. He
Yeah.
only works 5 days a week.
And then one is like, oh, it's because I have little kids. Like, I need to be with them more. And then the other one's like, you're because they're older, they don't need you anymore. So it's conflict like that. And for me, I just feel like, and then emergency calls, like, and if you're somewhere, you can't really leave the country because you have to be there in case something happens. Like, you're more entitled
You're tied down.
Yeah, you're tied down, and I don't like. I grew up with it my whole entire life. I don't like that lifestyle. It's just too much.
I'd be interested for Ken. I'd be interested to hear you give Yanira advice, because if I understood your story correctly, when you were at Stanford as an undergrad, you had planned on a different career path, and then you were sort of called back to the family farm.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It sounds like Yanira could take over the family business, but she didn't want to. You want to go into like HR and the healthcare industry. So, what would you advise her?
This was my plan. I was always going to go back to the family farm. I was very fortunate. I got to play football at Stanford, on a scholarship, and I was going to go get my MBA at the University of San Francisco because I knew the head coach. He needed something called a graduate assistant, which is an assistant coach, and what they do is they pay your tuition for grad school. So I was going to be able to coach football, help him coach football, and work on my MBA at the University of San Francisco. That was a great idea, right? Well, my father's twin brother passed away my senior year. I probably was pretty sure I was going to come back to the family farm, but had these other things I wanted to do first. But that didn't happen. I came right immediately, graduated one day, and then came back to the farm the next. Didn't get to go out and work somewhere else like I recommend for anybody. Just go somewhere and bring in new knowledge. So we're stuck with basically no new knowledge. In our office, there's my mother, my father, and I. And we have no new ideas coming in as far as how to maintain and run the office, as far as, any type of the software or whatever. So it's all on me. I don't have any new ideas coming in. You go off and work somewhere else for a while, and then you would have some fresh new ideas, and go work for a big conglomerate, an international company or something like that. Whether it's local or something like that. Then you can bring what they've taught you back to your family business. That'll help make your family business stronger. And hopefully your grandmother and your two brothers.
It's my grandma, my grandpa, and then this is the reason my mom came over here, because she wanted to get away. My dad wanted her to get away from that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the reasons why we moved to Bakersfield, because our bakeries and restaurants are in Ventura. We have all of our bakeries and restaurants over there.
In Ventura?
Fillmore, and Santa Paula, like around that area. So that's what my mom, when we were little, my dad's like, you're spending too much time over there, because my mom had a full-time job too, and the bakery and the restaurants. So my dad's like, this is too much. Like, we need to get away with it because they're abusing you. So that's when we decided to move over here.
Okay.
Because I would spend after school, that's how we would go to the restaurant and bakery.
Mm-hmm.
I was working since I was 13. That's what's like, no, I don't want this life.
So what if you went and worked in the white collar side of Tahoe Joe's or something like that?
Right.
Could you bring something you learned there back to your company?
I could, because the bakeries and the restaurants, all the knowledge that they gain was just basically they've been learning from day one. Like when they opened the business, they had no knowledge of anything.
They had no knowledge. They've learned on the job, and your brothers too.
Yes.
What if you went and worked for Marie Callender's, which does baking and restaurant?
Right.
It doesn't have to be apples and apples, but you would gain something from it. The way they do their scheduling, their ordering, that type of thing. How's the ordering system at your family company?
It's kind of good, but the thing is, they don't really have a process. They have a process, but it's not very strategy. It's more it comes as it goes. Do you get me?
Yeah.
Because it's mostly my grandparents.
A lot of last minute ordering.
Yeah.
And over ordering type of thing.
Kind of like that, or they're just we just remember it. You get me? They don't have a schedule or anything.
What is that supply chain? There's a whole business on that too.
So they don't really have a strategy, because they just I'm just saying they just work as they know.
Well, it'd be great if they would support you to go off and do something else for a while with the thought that you'd come back. It'd be nice for the support. I also had a grandfather who said, what in the hell are you going to college for? You're just going to come back and farm.
Yeah.
I had to deal with that. That wouldn't really hurt my feelings. And he also didn't realize the value of going off to go to a really good university. Yeah. And bless his heart, but he was a hard-working son of a gun, an immigrant, right? Maybe some of you have other members of your family. Why are you in school? You're wasting your time. Hopefully you get support of your family to continue education. But my poor grandfather what in the hell are you going off to college for? He didn't realize I'd just gotten a scholarship to go to Stanford. He had no idea what the value or the level that was. So that's what you're dealing with, you know, and you want their support, okay? So
We've got about 7 minutes or so left in this class. I wanted to make sure to get to a couple more things
Yeah,
before we
course.
get done. Jessica and Selena here are
Okay.
both focusing on agricultural things in one way or another in their case papers, and so is Daniel. So, Daniel, you're comparing Sunworld and what? And Driscoll's. And then I know, Selena, you work for Caterpillar or John Deere?
Caterpillar.
Yeah, so she's comparing Caterpillar and John Deere. And Jessica, what are the two companies you're comparing again? I forget.
The wonderful companies, basically Paramount Farms and Grimley.
So
both family owned, both privately owned. They bring in fresh people. You know, Bob and Rod Grimm, who I knew when they first started here. They started in the Arvin area here in Bakersfield. And Carrie and Barbara Grimm, they're widows. They're really nice people. The Resnicks, I don't know them personally. I know a lot of their employees, but they have a family type of atmosphere too. Very commendable companies, both of them. Both basically started here. Resnicks bought somebody out in 1983. Is that correct? 1981. Yes, a former farming company. Driscoll and Sunworld, as far as the fresh produce, it's impressive. How do you compare them as far as their organizational strategies? They're innovative.
It's going to be how they, yeah, pretty much. They're innovative strategies. One was berries, one was stable grapes.
Mm-hmm.
How they do in their own industry. They're both pretty
Sunworld's been very aggressive in the table grape industry.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, you work for them?
I work for them, yes.
Wonderful. Good. You're doing a new planting on Wheeler Ridge down there. You pushed out almond trees to plant grapes.
Yeah.
That's the Harris property from John Harris.
We bought a lot down by Arvin.
Yeah.
And we bought another 4,000 acres over by Porterville. That should go into production next year.
So you're involved in the day-to-day farming of it?
Sort of. Right now, I'm working on different projects, but I want to eventually get into the sales, produce sales.
You're using proprietary varieties and that type of thing that have been developed by Sunworld or
by us, by our research and development center.
Very innovative. Yeah.
Selena, I didn't notice the question in the list from you. So, do you have any particular questions for Kent coming from a slightly different agricultural perspective of selling machinery?
No, because it's very different. Because I'm concentrating. I work for the logistics side of Caterpillar, so it's very different from.
So you're at the logistics out here on Wheeler Ridge,
Yeah.
just beyond where their new planting is. Do you see where the almonds went down?
Yeah, I don't know why until now that you said it.
Okay, those recently the almonds went down. I don't know which way you come into work, but that's both John Deere and Caterpillar. You know, the GPS we use now, that type of thing. And our GPS antenna that services our ranch, you guys are all familiar with GPS. We have a few tractors that run off of that. We do not allow. We don't want the driver to touch the steering wheel until he turns at the end. So our antenna on the top of the barn, just below there and 50 feet over, is where my grandfather kept his mules. So
wow,
it's kind of neat.
Just
in my lifetime.
Awesome contrast.
I remember my grandfather and mules. He just played around with them when I was in the early 60s. They weren't working mules at that point. But at one point, they were working mules in the early 30s. You could do a lot of things with them. And now we have, just above there is a GPS antenna. So it's a big swing.
Do you,
it took a long time.
Does the barn still have, do you still see the stalls where the mules used to be?
We've took those out a long time
I was
ago.
going to say, you should take a picture of yesterday and today technology contrast. It'd be a beautiful picture of.
You don't think about that when you're getting rid of the old junk. At one point, those antiques become old junk, just like good old cars or something like that. You know, I'm sure all your fathers, they wish they still had their first car, right? because it was a neat, whatever it was, and now they had to get rid of it because they were going to get married and buy their wife a wedding ring. That's just, I had a 1975 Monte Carlo, a really
Nice.
neat car. Sold it for $1,000. So I could buy my wife a wedding ring. It was the right thing to do at that point.
It was. It was. So we got about 3 minutes left. Anybody we didn't get to question wise that wants to have Kent address one of your
Is
questions?
there a Milwee in the room?
What's that?
Mariah,
yeah.
That's you.
Yeah.
Mitch is your father?
I'm sorry, who?
Mitch?
No, that's different Louise.
This is different Milwee.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I noticed the last name.
Yeah.
Okay. Different.
They're like distant cousins.
Distant cousin.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a distant cousin that plays golf for Cal State Bakersfield
Yeah.
too, right? Okay.
I think anybody else that has a question. Let me end with a more general question, not necessarily about family business or about agriculture. Myra, who usually would sit there, was not here. A couple other people asked the same question. What's the biggest challenge, you would say, one of the biggest challenges you faced over the course of your time in this business? Can you kind of end on that note, what one of the biggest challenges was and how you dealt with it?
So we have the benefit of working with a bank. It used to be Bank of America was our banker, and now we're working with Farm Credit West. And basically, the family farmer is putting out. He doesn't sell stocks or bonds. He or the family owns that farm. And the same goes for the Resnicks and the Grimms. They're the only owners. The Grimm family owns Grimway, and the Resnicks own Paramount. Wonderful. Sunworld is owned basically by.
We're owned by RRG. They're a private equity company.
Private equity company, different. Okay. So we're putting when we need to retool, as they may be saying in the manufacturing world, when they have to build a new trailer or something like that. It takes a lot of capital for me to push out those 190 should be 280 acres worth of vineyard and change the infrastructure, the irrigation, and that type of thing. It just takes a lot of money. I borrow it from the bank, and that's what we end up doing. But every year we put out everything we have out there. The banking world gives you a line of credit, as we call an LOC, at a certain interest rate, and you're required to pay up on that. So you can borrow. You borrow up to it, then you get some income back from the crops, and then you lower it down and you borrow back up to it. So you can literally, if you had a line of credit for $1 million, you can borrow that $1 million back 4 times a year if you wish. As the income comes in, that type of thing. So, but you're putting out, you're hanging it out there every year, all of it, that type of thing.
Kent, let me jump in quick. I know some people have other classes they have to get to, and this is actually technically the end of our class time. So a couple of announcements quick. I tried my best, John, to help you last night. Looks like things went even worse. And Group F, you're still kind of struggling as well. I have not printed them out yet. I've looked at stuff. I have some ideas. If you want to see me, I'm going to take Kent out to lunch now, but I will be in my office a little later. If anybody has Globus questions, if you have any other questions, just let me know. I'm going to be gone from my office for a little while with Kent, but then I'll be back. If I don't see you during the office hours, obviously Wednesday is Veterans Day. We're not going to have class. I'm still doing my grading for your draft 5s, your summary sections. I'm hoping to get that done ASAP, as well as your professional development plans. So I'm getting there. I will get there as soon as possible. If you guys have any questions, concerns, you're worried about anything, please just email me, text me, call me, or come to my office hours. I'd say between 4 and 5. I'm going to be with Kent for the first part, and then I'll be in my office after that. If I miss you in my office, I'm happy to coordinate. If we need to meet or something later this week to help you guys with something, just let me know. Text me, call me, email me, and we'll schedule a time that works, okay? So Have a good rest of the week. Let's give Kent a big round of applause, actually.